All right, so we're diving into some distilleries and breweries.
Well, interesting.
Yeah, their second quarter and first half of the fiscal year 2024-25.
Okay.
These regulatory filings, we've got it right here, sent to both the BSE and the NSE.
Right, the Bombay and the National Stock Exchange of India.
Exactly. And, lots of numbers in there,
Mm-hmm.
but the press release tucked in here, it's pretty impressive.
What's catching your eye?
Double-digit growth
Okay.
and expanding profit margins in this economy.
Yeah, that is, that's worth noting.
It is worth noting, and that's kind of why we're here today, going to unpack it all.
Absolutely.
And especially, their gross margin, what, 4.5% year over year?
Around there, yeah. It makes you wonder, what are they doing right?
Right. What is their secret sauce? Are they cutting costs, raising prices? What do you think?
Well, it speaks to pricing power. They're not just at the mercy of the market. They've got some leverage.
Right. So they're in the driver's seat.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, their EBITTA up 28% year over year.
To like 35 crores, something like that.
Yeah, 35.9 to be exact. Rupees, of course.
Right, rupees, but still, that's not just sales growth, that's efficiency too.
Definitely efficiency. And speaking of efficiency, look at those profits.
Both PBT and paycheck, looking good.
Up 35% PBT, 26% PBT. That's not just luck.
No, that's solid financial planning, executing well.
Yeah, this isn't a fluke. This is consistent.
Absolutely, which investors love to see, that consistency.
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
We've got great quarterly results, but is this part of a bigger trend? Let's zoom out to the half-year numbers.
Okay, yeah, good idea. What do those look like?
Well, first off, total income for the half year is up.
How much, like a little bit or?
26.8%.
Whoa, okay, they're on a roll.
Yeah, that's a big jump, and it's reaching like 804.69 crores.
That's a serious chunk of change.
It is, and the EBITDA keeps climbing too.
Still strong, like the quarter.
Yep, up 29% year over year, and profitability, the PBT and PAT, both over 20% growth.
So it's not a one-hit wonder. This seems sustainable.
Exactly, consistent performance, and it makes you wonder,
What's the magic formula?
what is driving all this success? Are they just riding the industry wave, or are they doing something special?
Right, are they outperforming or just keeping up? It's a good question.
It is, so let's get into that.
Okay, sounds good.
First, I think we need a bit of background.
Yeah, who are these guys, really?
Right, so Som Distilleries and Breweries Limited.
SDBL,
Exactly, SDBL on the BSE and NSE.
the Indian Stock Exchange, as we know.
Yeah, but what they do is primarily alcoholic beverages.
Okay, spirits, beer, that sort of thing.
Exactly, and they're based in New Delhi, registered office.
Headquarters.
That's in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh.
Okay, so that gives us a little geographic context.
It does, and now we need the context for their performance.
Right, why are they doing so well?
So what are your thoughts? What factors could be driving this?
Well, maybe it's just increased demand, people wanting what they sell.
Okay, so maybe they launched some great new products? Or maybe it's just overall spending on beverages is up.
Could be. It happens. The market shifts.
Right, but are they just riding that shift or creating it?
That's the question. Are they just lucky, or is there strategy here?
Exactly, and that's what we need to figure out.
All right, let's dig in.
So beyond just the market, what else could it be?
Well, maybe some killer marketing campaigns. Or expanding their distribution network.
Right, getting those products in front of more people. And on the flip side, we can't forget those internal factors.
The cost management, the efficiency stuff.
Exactly, they could be optimizing their production, their supply chain.
Yeah, squeezing every rupee, making it count.
And that could be a big part of this story.
Absolutely. Internal factors can make a huge difference.
So it's probably a mix of things, but one thing I'm wondering,
What that?
are these trends we're seeing with SDBL, are they unique to them, or is this happening across the entire industry?
That's a great question.
Are they outperforming their peers, or are they just keeping up?
To really know that, we'd need to compare to other companies.
Right, look at the whole beverage industry.
See how everyone else is doing.
Exactly, but even without that, these numbers from SDBL, they're impressive.
They are. At the very least, they're keeping pace, maybe exceeding, who knows, without more data.
Good point, and before we move on, anything in these figures that raises a red flag for you?
Not a red flag, but I am curious about their revenue breakdown.
By product, you mean?
Yeah, is it growth across the board, or is one product line carrying them?
That's a great question.
If it's one product, that's a risk. What if it falls out of favor?
Right, or if competition intensifies. So
Exactly.
that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. We need more information to assess that.
All right, so let's bring it back to our listeners, the people who might be thinking about investing in SDBL.
The potential investors out there.
You've seen the numbers, you've heard our initial analysis.
So what does it all mean?
Well, is this a buy? Is SDBL a smart investment?
Now, I can't give financial advice.
Of course, of course.
But their performance is noteworthy. You can't deny that.
They're growing, improving margins, consistent profitability. That's attractive.
It is. But as with any investment, you got to do your homework.
Don't just take our word for it.
Right? Dig deeper. Look beyond these numbers.
So what should our listeners be looking for in future reports from SDBL?
Well, first, is this revenue growth sustainable? Or are we seeing any slowdown?
Good point.
And second,
Those margins, can they maintain them or even improve them further?
and of course, we can't forget the competition.
Right, and consumer preferences always changing.
Anything else our listeners should have on their radar?
New product launches, marketing campaigns, expansions, those are all signals of a company that's thinking ahead.
Right. They're not complacent. They're actively pursuing growth.
Exactly.
All right. So just a reminder, we're just scratching the surface here.
This is just the beginning of the story.
One chapter in a much longer book.
There's always more to uncover, more to analyze.
And that's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive.
We're giving you the tools to understand all this financial stuff. So stay with us. We'll keep dissecting these results.
We'll explore what it all means for SDBL and the whole Indian beverage industry.
Lots more to come.
Stay tuned. You know, we've been focused on SDBL's numbers.
Yeah, all those impressive figures.
But numbers alone, they don't always paint the full picture.
It's true. We need context, right? Like, we know what they've done, but what does it all mean?
Exactly. What's the so what? How do we interpret this in the real world?
And that's where understanding the bigger picture comes in, the whole industry landscape.
The trends, the competition, the overall economy, can't ignore those.
So let's widen our lens a bit. What's happening in the Indian beverage industry right now?
Well, one major trend is the rise of the Indian middle class.
More people with more disposable income.
Exactly. And that means their spending habits are changing too.
So how does that affect beverages specifically?
We're seeing a shift away from, the cheaper stuff
The value buys?
and a move towards premium branded alcoholic beverages.
Interesting. So less budget-friendly and more treat yourself.
Exactly. And that plays right into SDBL's hands.
Because they're focused on that premium segment.
Precisely. It's a tailwind for them, but it's not the only trend.
What else is shaking things up?
Well, craft beers are getting really popular.
Oh, yeah. I've noticed that. Lots of new breweries popping up.
And it's not just beer. Artisanal spirits, too.
So people are looking for something different, unique flavors, the whole experience.
It's about quality over quantity for a lot of consumers.
So is SDBL on board with this craft trend?
It's hard to say. They're not a craft producer in the traditional sense.
But they do have a diversified portfolio.
They do. Some more specialized offerings.
So maybe they could capitalize on it, or maybe they stick with their core brands.
It'll be interesting to see what direction they choose.
It's a gamble either way, sticking with the familiar or branching out.
And then, of course, we can't forget the elephant in the room.
Oh, you mean the regulatory landscape?
That's the one. Always a challenge for this industry.
Different states, different rules. It's a lot to keep track of.
It impacts everything: production, distribution, pricing, even marketing.
So how is SDBL handling this regulatory maze?
They have to be nimble, adaptable, constantly monitoring the changes.
Sounds like a full-time job.
It is.
Oh.
And their success depends on getting it right.
Okay, so regulatory savvy is a must-have.
Absolutely crucial.
Now let's talk competition. Who are they up against?
It's a crowded market, lots of domestic players,
And international ones, too.
big multinational brands, lots of resources.
So how is SDBL holding their own in this fight for market share?
Well, they've got a few things going for them. They've been around for a while.
Established brand.
Exactly. People recognize them, especially their target demographic.
That brand loyalty is valuable, especially in a competitive market.
And they've been smart, investing in production capacity, distribution networks.
So they're not just sitting back, they're being proactive.
They're actively trying to expand their reach, capture more market share.
And that's probably contributing to their financial success.
Likely so, but we also need to be realistic. There are risks.
Every investment has risks.
What could go wrong for SDBL?
Yeah, what are some potential challenges they might face?
Well, consumer preferences, they're always changing.
What's hot today might be out of style tomorrow.
Exactly. SDBL needs to stay ahead of those trends, adapt their products,
or they risk being left behind.
and of course, competition, it's only going to get tougher.
More brands, more products, fighting for the same customers.
We could see price wars, mergers, new players entering the market.
So it's a dynamic landscape, lots of moving parts.
And then there's the economic uncertainty. A downturn could hurt them.
Reduced spending, lower demand, that would impact everyone.
And of course, those regulatory risks. We can't forget those.
Always a factor in this industry.
Any changes could disrupt their operations, increase costs.
So many things to consider.
It's all about weighing the rewards against the risks.
Absolutely. And speaking of rewards, let's go back to that gross margin improvement.
That 4.5% jump year over year.
They're getting more profitable with each unit sold, but how?
Honestly, we don't have all the details.
The press release is a bit vague.
Yeah, no breakdown of costs or pricing strategy.
So we're left to speculate a bit, but responsibly, of course.
Of course, we can use our knowledge of the industry, their past performance.
Put on our detective hats.
Exactly. And see if we can come up with some plausible explanations.
Okay, so what are some possibilities?
Well, maybe they got better deals with their suppliers.
For raw materials, packaging, things like that.
If they can source those things more cheaply, it impacts their overall costs.
Makes sense. Squeezing savings from the supply chain.
Another possibility is process improvements in their production facilities.
Making things more efficient, less waste.
Even small changes can add up to big savings over time.
So streamlining operations, getting more bang for their buck.
Exactly. And then there's pricing.
They could have raised prices on some products.
But carefully, without affecting demand.
That's a delicate balance.
It is. You need to understand your customers, their price sensitivity.
But if you get it right, it can really boost your margins.
Absolutely. And that improved gross margin suggests they might have gotten it right.
It's definitely possible, but we need more information to say for sure.
More data from the company would be helpful.
All right, so let's move on to their EBIDTA growth.
Up 28% year over year in Q2 and 29% for the half year.
That's impressive. It shows strong operating profitability.
But is it just because they're selling more, or is there something else going on?
Like improved operational efficiency.
Exactly. Are they just growing the top line, or are they getting better at managing costs too?
Well, based on what we've seen, it's probably both.
The revenue growth is definitely a factor, but that margin improvement is telling.
It suggests they're also becoming more efficient, more profitable per rupee earned.
It's not just about selling more, it's about selling smarter.
Managing costs, optimizing operations, it all adds up.
And that combination is key to long-term success.
Okay, so before we move on, I want to hear from our listeners.
Yeah, what are your thoughts so far?
What are your takeaways from all this?
What's surprising you? What questions do you have?
There are no wrong answers. We just want to hear your perspective.
What stands out to you? What would you like to explore further?
So we've really dug into these financials.
Yeah, lots of numbers.
But now I want to talk about what's next for SDBL.
The future.
Yeah.
Right. We've got this snapshot, but what about the long game?
It's like we've got some pieces of the puzzle, but what's the full picture?
Exactly. What information are we missing?
And what would you be looking for to fill those gaps?
Well, I'd be curious about how they plan to approach this whole craft beverage thing.
The craft beer market, you mean?
Yeah, are they going to try to acquire craft brands, develop their own, partner up?
Big strategic decision could really impact their future growth.
Absolutely. And then geographically, where are they going?
India is a big market, lots of different regions, tastes.
So will they double down on their existing markets or try to expand into new ones?
More risk, potentially more reward.
Exactly. And we can't forget the regulatory hurdles.
Each state with its own rules. It's a lot to navigate.
So how are they planning to handle that? Building relationships, investing in compliance?
It's going to be key to their expansion, no matter how good their strategy is.
Right. And then, big picture, what's their long-term vision?
Where do they see themselves in 5-10 years?
What are their growth goals? How will they innovate new products?
The market's always changing. They need to stay ahead of the curve.
If you're not moving forward, you're falling behind.
So lots to consider, even with these strong results.
Definitely.
If you could ask SDBL's leadership one question,
Just one.
what would it be?
I'd want to know how sustainable this growth really is.
Okay, yeah, is this a blip or can they keep it up long term?
Because the market will shift, competition will change. Can they adapt?
Big questions, and ultimately that's what it comes down to for investors.
Weighing the potential, but understanding the risks.
And that's what we've tried to do today with this deep dive.
We've looked at the numbers, the trends, the challenges.
But this is just a starting point for anyone who's interested.
Do your own research. Read those company filings. Talk to analysts.
Don't just take our word for it.
This is about giving you the tools to understand.
To make your own informed decisions.
Because that's what it's all about. Being informed, being smart.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into some distilleries and breweries.
We hope you learned something.
And we'll be back next time with another fascinating deep dive.
Into the world of finance, so stay tuned.
Until then, happy investing.